Before we begin this touching story, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you never miss heartwarming stories like this one. Now let's begin. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone courtyard of Buckingham Palace. Tourists gathered behind the iron gates, cameras ready to capture the famous changing of the guard ceremony. Among the crowd stood 7-year-old Emma Peterson, her small hand clutching her mother's tightly. Emma wore a pink knitted hat that covered her head, where hair once grew before chemotherapy took it away. Her pale face showed signs of exhaustion, but her blue eyes sparkled with excitement. This trip to London was a gift from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, something Emma had dreamed about for months while lying in hospital beds. Sarah. Peterson looked down at her daughter with a mixture of pride and sadness. Emma had been battling leukemia for 2 years now. The treatments were harsh, and the road ahead remained uncertain. But today was different. Today was about making Emma smile, about creating a memory that would shine brighter than the darkness of hospital rooms. Emma had always been fascinated by the royal guards. She watched videos of them standing perfectly still in their red uniforms and tall bearskin hats. She would tell her mother how brave they looked, how strong they must be to stand so still for so long. In Emma's eyes, they were real-life heroes. It's just like the nurses and doctors who took care of her. The crowd began to buzz with excitement as the guards marched into position. Their synchronized movements were precise and disciplined. Each guard stood at attention, eyes fixed forward, faces expressionless. They were trained to ignore distractions, to remain professional no matter what happened around them. Children would wave, tourists would try to make them laugh, but the guards never broke their stoic stance. It was tradition, a symbol of dedication and duty that had been upheld for generations. Emma watched in awe as the guards took their positions. She tugged on her mother's sleeve and whispered that she wanted to get closer. Sarah hesitated, knowing Emma tired easily these days. But seeing the hope in her daughter's eyes, she nodded and carefully guided Emma through the crowd toward the front. They reached the barrier separating the public from the palace grounds. Emma pressed her face between the iron bars, trying to see better. One guard stood just a few feet away, his posture perfect, his gaze steady. Emma stared at him with complete admiration. She wondered what it felt like to be so strong, to stand so tall and proud. In her mind, this guard was a hero protecting something important, just like how she tried to be brave during her treatments. Sarah noticed Emma's fixation and smiled sadly. She pulled out her phone to take a picture, wanting to capture this moment of pure joy on her daughter's face. But then something unexpected happened. Emma's small hand reached through the bars, waving gently at the guard. She called out in her soft voice, barely audible above the crowd, asking if he could see her. The guard remained motionless. Sarah gently pulled Emma back, explaining that the guards were not allowed to move or speak while on duty. Emma's face fell slightly, but she understood. She had learned about rules during her time in the hospital. There were always rules about what you could and could not do. Still, she kept watching the guard, hoping he might notice her. The crowd around them grew larger as more tourists arrived. People pushed forward to get better views and photographs. Emma began to feel overwhelmed by the noise and the press of bodies around her. Her breathing became shallow, a sign Sarah recognized immediately. Emma was getting tired, and they would need to rest soon. But Emma did not want to leave yet. She had come all this way, and she desperately wanted just one moment to feel connected to the brave guard she admired so much. Sarah knelt beside Emma and suggested they find a bench to rest for a few minutes before continuing their tours. Emma's eyes filled with tears. She shook her head and said she just wanted the guard to know she was there, to know that she thought he was brave and special. Sarah's heart broke, hearing the longing in her daughter's voice. Emma had been through so much pain and fear. She had endured needle pokes, medicine that made her sick, and long nights alone in hospital rooms. All she wanted now was this one simple moment of connection, without thinking about the rules or the crowds. Emma slipped through a small gap in the barrier. Before Sarah could stop her, the little girl in the pink hat walked slowly across the restricted area toward the guard. Gasps rose from the crowd. Security personnel immediately began moving toward Emma, ready to escort her back. Sarah called out to Emma, panic rising in her chest. But Emma kept walking, her small legs carrying her forward with determination. She stopped directly in front of the guard, tilting her head back to look up at him. From this close, she could see the details of his uniform. The shine of his buttons, the careful way everything was arranged. The guard's eyes flickered down for just a second. He saw the small girl in the pink hat, her thin frame swimming in an oversized jacket, her pale skin, the dark circles under her hopeful eyes. In that brief moment, he understood. He had been trained to ignore distractions, to maintain protocol no matter what. But standing before him was not just any child. This was a little girl who had clearly faced battles of her own. The guard's name was James Mitchell, and he had served for 8 years. He had stood through rain, heat, and countless attempts by tourists to break his concentration. He had never once broken protocol, never once stepped out of line. But today felt different. Emma spoke in her soft voice. She told the guard that she thought he was very brave. She said she had cancer and that she tried to be brave too, but sometimes it was really hard. She explained that watching the guards made her feel stronger, made her believe that she could stand tall like them, even when she felt weak. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she spoke, her small voice trembling with emotion. The crowd had gone completely silent now. Everyone watched, holding their breath. Security had paused, uncertain whether to interrupt this moment. Sarah stood frozen, her hand over her mouth, watching her daughter bare her soul to a stranger who was not supposed to respond. Then something extraordinary happened. Guard James Mitchell did something that went against every rule in his training manual. Slowly, carefully, he moved. He took one knee, lowering himself to Emma's eye level. His gloved hand reached out and gently touched the brim of Emma's pink hat. The crowd gasped in shock and wonder. This was unheard of. Royal Guards simply did not break formation. They did not interact with the public. It was a tradition that had been maintained for countless years. But in that moment, James chose humanity over protocol. He chose compassion over rules. James looked directly into Emma's eyes and spoke quietly. His voice meant only for her. He told Emma that she was the bravest person he had ever met. He said that standing still in a uniform was easy compared to what she faced every day. He explained that real courage was not about standing still or looking strong on the outside. Real courage was about fighting battles that others could not see, about getting up every morning and choosing to keep going even when everything hurt. He told Emma that she was his hero, and that he was honored to meet her. Emma's tears flowed freely now, but her face broke into the widest smile. She threw her small arms around the guard's neck in a hug. James gently returned the embrace, careful of her fragile frame. The crowd erupted in applause and cheers. Cameras flashed and phones recorded the incredible moment. What had begun as an ordinary day at Buckingham Palace had transformed into something magical. People in the crowd wiped their own tears, moved by the display of kindness they had just witnessed. Security officers stood back, making no move to intervene. Even they understood that some moments transcend rules and regulations. This was one of those rare instances when breaking protocol was absolutely the right thing to do. James helped Emma stand and walked her back to the barrier where Sarah waited. Sarah was crying now too. Overwhelmed by the kindness this stranger had shown her daughter, James saluted Emma before returning to his post. Emma stood taller than before, her smile bright despite her pale complexion. She waved at James, who gave her the smallest nod in return before resuming his rigid stance. The crowd continued to applaud, and several people approached Sarah to tell her how special Emma was. Strangers offered words of encouragement and support. Some shared their own stories of battles with illness, creating an impromptu community of compassion right there on the London street. Sarah thanked them all, feeling less alone than she had in months. Emma clung to her mother's hand, still smiling, still watching her guard friend. The rest of the ceremony continued. But everyone there knew they had witnessed something far more important than a traditional changing of the guard. They had seen humanity at its finest. They had watched as a man chose kindness over duty, love over law. Word of what happened spread quickly through the crowd and then beyond. People began posting videos and photos on social media. Within hours, the story of the little girl with cancer and the guard who broke tradition had gone viral. Millions of people around the world watched the footage, their hearts touched by the simple act of compassion. News organizations picked up the story. Reporters wanted to interview both Emma and James. The palace received thousands of messages praising Guard Mitchell for his actions. Many people called him a hero, though James himself would later say he only did what anyone with a heart would do. He explained in interviews that he saw a child in need of encouragement, and he could not just stand there and do nothing. He said that sometimes being a good person means more than following rules perfectly. His honesty and humility only made people admire him more. For Emma, the experience was life-changing. The video of her meeting with the guard was played during her treatments, giving her something positive to focus on during difficult moments. Nurses and doctors at the hospital watched the clip, and many of them cried. They knew how much Emma had suffered, how many times she had been scared and in pain. Seeing her smile so genuinely gave everyone hope. Emma's room at the hospital became decorated with pictures of royal guards. Other patients began calling her the brave princess. She would tell anyone who listened about her friend James, the kindest guard in all of London. Sarah framed a photograph from that day and placed it beside Emma's hospital bed. Whenever Emma felt frightened or tired, she would look at that picture and remember what James told her. She would remind herself that she was brave, that courage meant fighting even when things were hard. The photograph became a symbol of hope, not just for Emma, but for her entire family. Emma's father, who had stayed home to work and could not make the London trip, wept when he saw the video. He felt grateful that his daughter had received such a precious gift at a time when they all needed something to believe in. Back in London, James Mitchell found himself at the center of attention he never sought. His commanding officers called him in for a meeting, and initially James worried he might face discipline for breaking protocol. He stood before his superiors, prepared to accept whatever consequences came his way. But instead of reprimands, he received commendation. His officers explained that while protocol was important, so was representing the best of British values. Compassion, kindness, and humanity were just as important as discipline and duty. They told James they were proud of his actions and that he had brought honor to the guard in a way that no perfect ceremony ever could. The story continued to spread across the globe. Television programs featured the video during feel-good news segments. Celebrities shared the clip with their followers. People from different countries sent messages of support to both Emma and James. A fund was started to help with Emma's medical expenses. Donations poured in from strangers who had been moved by the story. The generosity of people who had never met Emma showed the ripple effect of one kind act. James's decision to kneel and comfort a scared little girl had inspired millions to be more compassionate in their own lives. Emma's doctors reported that her spirits had improved dramatically since the London trip. While her medical battle was far from over, her positive attitude made a real difference in her treatment. Medical research shows that mental and emotional health significantly impact physical recovery. Emma's renewed hope and happiness strengthened her will to fight. She participated more actively in her therapy sessions. She complained less about the discomfort. She smiled more often and encouraged other children in the cancer ward. Emma had found her own way to be a guard, standing strong and protecting her own hope even when things were difficult. Several weeks after the incident, Emma received an unexpected package. It was delivered with special handling, marked with official government seals. Sarah opened it carefully while Emma watched with wide eyes. Inside was a beautifully framed certificate from Buckingham Palace, signed by high-ranking officials. It declared Emma Peterson an honorary member of the Queen's Guard for her bravery and courage. Included with the certificate was a miniature guard uniform, complete with a tiny red jacket and a small, bearskin hat made just for Emma. There was also a personal letter from James Mitchell. In his letter, James wrote about how meeting Emma had changed his perspective on what it meant to be truly brave. He explained that after their encounter, he thought about her every day while standing at his post. When his feet hurt, or when the weather was harsh, he would remember Emma fighting her much harder battle with grace and determination. He told her that she made him want to be a better person, not just a better guard. James included his contact information and invited Emma to write to him whenever she wanted. He promised to write back and to keep encouraging her through her treatment. Emma was overjoyed by the package. She insisted on wearing the tiny uniform immediately, even though it was too big for her thin frame. She paraded around the hospital ward, showing every nurse and doctor her special outfit. The other children on the ward gathered around to admire the uniform and hear the story again. Emma told them about James, about how he knelt down to talk to her, about how he called her brave. She shared James's message that real courage is about fighting battles others cannot see. Her words inspired the other children, giving them strength for their own difficult journeys. Sarah helped Emma write a response to James. Emma dictated while her mother wrote, explaining that she kept the photograph by her bed and looked at it every day. She told James about the other sick children she had met and how she shared his words with them. Emma wrote that she wanted to be like him when she grew up, someone who made other people feel special and brave. She drew a picture of a guard and a little girl holding hands, with a large heart between them. Sarah enclosed updated photographs of Emma wearing her miniature uniform, and they mailed the letter to the address James had provided. The correspondence between Emma and James became an ongoing source of joy for both of them. James wrote regularly, sending postcards from different locations where he was stationed. He shared stories about his work, but also asked Emma about her life, her treatments, her hopes and dreams. He never treated her like a sick child to be pitied. Instead, he spoke to her as a fellow warrior, fighting her own important battle. Emma treasured every letter, keeping them in a special box decorated with drawings of palace guards. Reading James's encouraging words became part of her healing routine. Months passed, and Emma's condition began to improve. The treatments were working. Her doctors cautiously optimistic about her progress. Her hair started growing back, thin and wispy at first, but gradually becoming thicker. She gained weight and her energy increased. Sarah noticed her daughter laughing more, playing more, acting more like the carefree child she had been before cancer invaded their lives. Emma attributed much of her positive outlook to that day in London and to her friendship with James. She felt like she had someone special believing in her, someone who saw her as brave and strong rather than sick and weak. During this time, the story of Emma and James continued to inspire others. Schools used the video as a teaching tool about kindness and courage. Character education programs featured the story as an example of going above and beyond to help others. James was invited to speak at various events about his experience. He always accepted these invitations, hoping to spread the message that small acts of kindness can have enormous impacts. He would tell audiences that kneeling for Emma took only a few minutes of his time, but gave her something to hold on to during her darkest hours. He encouraged everyone to look for opportunities to show compassion, even when it meant breaking from routine or stepping outside comfort zones. A year after their first meeting, Emma received another special invitation. The palace was hosting an event honoring individuals who exemplified courage and service. Emma was invited as a guest of honor, and James specifically requested to be her escort for the day. The invitation arrived with official palace letterhead, and Sarah could hardly believe it. Emma had been in remission for 3 months now, though she still required regular checkups and monitoring. She was stronger, healthier, and more full of life than she had been in years. The thought of returning to London and seeing James again filled Emma with pure excitement. The day of the event was perfect. Emma wore a beautiful dress and a fascinator hat that Sarah had carefully chosen. Her hair had grown back enough to style, though it was still shorter than before. Emma did not mind. She said her short hair reminded her that she was a survivor, a warrior who had fought hard and won. When they arrived at the palace, James was waiting at the entrance. He was in full ceremonial uniform, looking every bit the distinguished guard. But when he saw Emma, his professional demeanor softened into a genuine smile. He knelt down again, just as he had a year before, and greeted Emma with a warm hug. The event was magnificent. Emma met other extraordinary individuals who had shown remarkable courage in different ways. She heard stories of people who had overcome incredible obstacles, who had helped others in times of crisis, who had made a difference in their communities. Emma realized she was part of a larger community of brave people, all fighting different battles but united by their determination and spirit. She felt honored to be included among such inspiring individuals. Throughout the day, James stayed by Emma's side, introducing her to people and making sure she felt comfortable and valued. During the formal ceremony, Emma was presented with a special medal recognizing her bravery in facing her illness with courage and grace. As the medal was placed around her neck, the entire room stood and applauded. Emma looked out at the crowd of strangers celebrating her, and she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She thought about all the difficult days, the painful treatments, the moments when she wanted to give up. She thought about that day when she walked up to James, desperate for some sign that she was brave enough to keep fighting, and she realized how far she had come since then. After the ceremony, James gave Emma a personal tour of areas of the palace not usually open to the public. He showed her where the guards prepared for duty, explained their various responsibilities, and even let her try on his ceremonial hat. It was far too big for Emma's head and slipped down over her eyes, making both of them laugh. They took photos together, creating new memories to add to the precious one from their first meeting. James told Emma how proud he was of her progress and how her strength had inspired him and so many others. Emma hugged him tightly and thanked him for seeing her as brave when she had felt so scared. Before they left London, Sarah arranged for Emma and James to do a joint interview with a major news program. They wanted to share an update on Emma's recovery and to talk about the lasting impact of their encounter. During the interview, Emma spoke confidently about her cancer journey. She explained that having cancer was scary, but that she learned she was much stronger than she thought. She credited James with helping her see her own courage. James, in turn, praised Emma for her resilience and positive spirit. He emphasized that anyone could make a difference in someone's life simply by choosing kindness over convenience, the interviewer asked James if he had any regrets about breaking protocol that day. James smiled and shook his head firmly. He said that meeting Emma was one of the most important moments of his life. He explained that rules and traditions served important purposes, but they should never prevent us from being human and compassionate. He said that if faced with the same situation again, he would make the same choice without hesitation. The love and respect between James and Emma were evident to everyone watching. Their friendship had transcended the circumstances that brought them together and had become something beautiful and lasting. Years continued to pass, and Emma remained cancer-free. She grew stronger and healthier with each passing season. She returned to school full-time and eventually graduated with honors. Throughout her teenage years, Emma and James maintained their friendship. They exchanged letters and emails, met up whenever possible, and supported each other through various life challenges. James attended Emma's high school graduation, sitting proudly in the audience as she gave a speech about overcoming adversity. Emma quoted something James had told her during their first meeting, about courage being the ability to keep fighting battles others cannot see. She told her classmates that everyone faces difficulties, and the key to success is finding the strength to stand tall even when you feel like falling. Emma decided to pursue a career in pediatric oncology. She wanted to help other children facing the same terrifying journey she had experienced. During her university studies and medical training, Emma often shared her story with patients and their families. She would tell them about the day a royal guard broke tradition to show her kindness, and how that moment gave her the strength to keep fighting. She carried the photograph from that day in her wallet, a reminder of the power of compassion. Emma became known for her exceptional empathy and her ability to connect with young patients who felt scared and alone. When Emma completed her medical degree, James traveled to attend her graduation ceremony from medical school. He had been promoted several times over the years and now held a senior position in the Guard. But he never forgot the little girl in the pink hat who had walked up to him with such hope in her eyes. He never forgot how her courage had taught him about true bravery. As Emma walked across the stage to receive her diploma, James stood and applauded along with her family. He felt immense pride, knowing that the frightened 7-year-old he had comforted had grown into a doctor who would help countless other children. The story of Emma and James continued to inspire people around the world. Their first meeting had been shared millions of times across social media and news platforms. It became one of those rare viral moments that genuinely uplifted people and restored faith in human goodness. Parents showed the video to their children as an example of kindness and courage. Teachers used it to demonstrate that breaking rules is sometimes necessary when human compassion demands it. The video became a timeless reminder that we all have the power to make a profound difference in someone's life through simple acts of caring. Emma opened her own pediatric oncology practice, dedicating her career to helping children battle cancer. She decorated her office with images of royal guards, and she kept the miniature uniform she had received all those years ago displayed prominently. When young patients asked about it, Emma would share her story. She would tell them about being scared and sick, about meeting a guard who took the time to make her feel brave, about how that moment changed everything for her. She would explain that they too were incredibly brave, and that their battle made them warriors worthy of honor and respect. Many of Emma's young patients found comfort and strength in her story. James eventually retired from active guard duty, but remained connected to the palace in an advisory role. He frequently spoke to new recruits about the importance of balancing duty with compassion. He would share the story of Emma and explain that sometimes the most important thing a guard can do is to set aside protocol and simply be human. His lessons resonated deeply with younger guards who saw him as a role model. James never sought fame or recognition for what he did that day. He simply believed he had done the right thing, and he hoped others would do the same when faced with similar choices. On the 10th anniversary of their first meeting, Emma and James were invited back to Buckingham Palace for a special commemoration. A plaque was installed near the spot where they had first met, honoring their story as an example of courage and compassion. The ceremony was attended by hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by Emma and James in various ways. Former patients Emma had treated spoke about how her empathy and understanding had helped them through dark times. Guards who had been inspired by James's example shared how they had chosen kindness in their own careers. The event celebrated not just to individuals, but the ripple effect of goodness that spreads when people choose love over rules. During the ceremony, Emma spoke to the gathered crowd. She looked out at the faces of strangers and friends alike and felt overwhelmed with emotion. She thanked James publicly for seeing her, really seeing her on that day when she felt invisible and terrified. She explained that his simple act of kneeling down and speaking words of encouragement had given her the strength to survive. She told the audience that we never know how much our kindness might mean to someone else, how one moment of compassion might change the entire trajectory of a life. She urged everyone to look for opportunities to break from routine and show humanity to those who are suffering. James spoke as well, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at Emma, now a successful doctor and a beacon of hope for so many, and marveled at how far she had come. He reminded everyone that Emma had been the brave one all along. He had simply recognized her courage and reflected it back to her. He emphasized that kindness costs nothing but means everything. He encouraged people to trust their instincts when they encounter someone in need, to set aside concerns about rules or appearances, and simply do what feels right in their hearts. The crowd gave both Emma and James a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. The friendship between Emma and James remained strong for the rest of their lives. They became advocates for cancer research and childhood illness awareness, using their platform to raise funds and support for families facing medical crises. They appeared together at charity events, always emphasizing the themes of courage, compassion, and human connection. Their story was featured in books, documentaries, and even inspired a television movie. But for Emma and James, the story was never about fame or recognition. It was about a moment of genuine human connection that reminded both of them what truly matters in life. Emma often reflected on that day and how different her life might have been if James had simply stood still and followed protocol. She might have given up hope. She might have stopped believing in her own strength. But because one person chose compassion over rules, chose to see her as a person rather than a distraction, Emma found the courage to keep fighting. She survived and thrived, eventually dedicating her life to giving other children that same hope and encouragement. The little girl in the pink hat had grown into a woman who changed lives every day, all because someone had chosen to change hers. James, too, was forever impacted by that encounter. Meeting Emma taught him that true service means being present and responsive to the needs of others, even when it requires breaking from tradition. He learned that courage takes many forms, and that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is show vulnerability and compassion. His decision to kneel before Emma that day became the defining moment of his career and his life. He never regretted it for a single second. Instead, he remained grateful for the opportunity to make a difference. And he hoped his example would inspire others to do the same when their moment came.